Konnichiwa, hello and welcome. This is Roy at NECA and today I will be reviewing a super cool, awesome blast from the past, and that is the NECA Godzilla vs. SpaceGodzilla Godzilla 1994 figure. And I got some things to say about it. So, with that said, let's get things started. And now, starting things off with the box, because, you know, we gotta talk about really cool boxes on this channel when we have them. First things first, we see the Japanese theatrical movie poster for the 1994 movie Godzilla vs. SpaceGodzilla. We could see the poster version of SpaceGodzilla right there, which I'm probably gonna try to get the Super 7 version of sooner or later. We have the little bitty mini Mothra right there. We have a Mogira right there. We have Godzilla, of course, and we have the little Godzilla, and we have the title of the movie, Godzilla vs. SpaceGodzilla, in Japanese and English. We have the Godzilla logo at the bottom left. We have a really cool space design inside of the box. The box is empty, of course, because I already have the figure out. And here we have a really cool picture of the figure right there. We have the title of the movie at the top of the box. We have ages 14 plus, so this is obviously an adult collectible. And we have a warning label, choking hazard. So, yet again, another warning label reminding you, don't get hungry and mistake this for food, because yeah, it's not gonna go over so well in your stomach. And also we have the NECA logo side of the box. Pretty much the movie poster and the title the same as the front of the box. We have the Godzilla 65th anniversary logo right there, and the same thing on the other side of the box. The back of the box, we have some really cool pictures of the figure and the movie title logo yet again. We have the Toho logo and the Godzilla Kaiju logo, and we have the plot for the movie. You can pause that and read it if you want to. Okay, now moving right along to the bottom of the box, we have the NECA logo, real toys, a serial number, and a barcode, and all kind of other logos. It's not that important. So that pretty much concludes it for the box. Now on to the figure. And now here we have the NECA Godzilla vs. SpaceGodzilla Godzilla 1994 figure right here before us, in all of his awesome atomic Gojira glory. As you can see, this is a really cool, really awesome figure. Very well detailed, very well sculpted, and well articulated. Although this figure is not without its flaws, and that's what we'll be going over today. Although this figure does look good for what it is, it's technically not the ideal or the best or the most best in quality Heisei Godzilla figure that you can get. Although it is good for what it is, there is better, and if you want to get a good, highly detailed, highly articulated Heisei Godzilla for a good price that's not overly expensive, we do have the Hiya Toys Exquisite Basic Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah Godzilla 1991 coming up, and I will try my best to get my hands on, although I've been spending a lot of money on Power Rangers Lightning Collection figures right now, but I will definitely get back into at least collecting Hiya Toys Exquisite Basic Godzilla figures. But anyway, I will be going over detail and articulation with this figure, starting with the upper body portion of the figure, working my way down to the lower body portion of the figure, and then getting more in depth with the rest of the figure. So with that said, let's get started. And now, starting things off with the upper body portion of the figure, starting with the head. The head can look up about that much, down about that much. We can rotate the head independently from the neck, and the opposite way. We can rotate the neck all the way around, and the opposite way. So that is good. We have jaw articulation as well, so we can open that mouth and then close it, and I can open his mouth again and put my light on so we can see all those double rows of teeth that the NECA Godzilla has, and all those finer details on the inside of his mouth. And we can see he has his little bitty goji ears there, and we can see those very beautiful, fearsome eyes of his, looking very, very mean and fearsome, like a giant kaiju you seriously don't want to mess with. And of course, we do have his dorsal spines, which are sculpted out of more of a rubbery material, but still do be careful because you don't want to rip them. So these won't cut you, unlike the SH Monster Arts versions of these figures, so that is good, and you really don't have to worry about them breaking either. You just don't want to play with them too much because you don't want them to rip, and you don't want too much paint chipping off of them either, because you can see mine does have a little bit of paint chipping on it, but that's nothing that doesn't bother me too much because that's minor. I mean, if you're gonna leave your figures out of the box, that's gonna happen. But I'm not one of those collectors that's gonna get all upset over like a one little bitty paint chip on a figure. I'm not like that. But anyway, getting into arm articulation. The shoulders are on ball joints, so I can move them back about that much and forward about that much, not too much. We can rotate them all the way around a full 360 in the opposite way, just like so. As you are witnessing, we do have a full 360 bicep swivel. Same is true with the other arm. So, yeah, going over this for the millionth time. Well, actually, for the second time. But anyway, we also have a swivel at the elbow, as well as a single jointed elbow hinge. Same is true with the other arm. And we do have that single joint in the elbow, so we can bend it forward and back. We have a swivel in the wrist, and we can sort of rock it forward and back a little bit. Not much. Well, yeah, not too much. It's just a swivel, not a ball joint. But anyway, we also have a hinge in his fingers as well, so we can open and close those hands. So we do have that, as well as a ball joint in the top torso, so we can rock him side to side slightly and rotate all the way around a full 360 and the opposite way. So that pretty much concludes it for articulation and detail with the upper body portion of the figure. So now working our way down to the lower body portion of the figure and getting into articulation with the hips and the legs and the feet and the knees and all that good stuff. So let's get to it. And now that we are at the lower body portion of the figure, as you can see, the hips and the legs and the feet are well sculpted. We can't really spread the hips out that much. Well, not technically very much at all. And you can see the tail just came off, so that's already points getting taken off. But anyway, we can rotate them a full 360. That's about it. So that's pretty much all you're going to get for leg articulation, and maybe being able to move them forward and back a little bit slightly like you were seeing, so we can kind of shift them up and down a little bit. not a whole lot. We do have a single joint in the knee, so we do have a single joint hinge in both knees, and then, as you just witnessed, the tail just fell off again. And I believe, if I'm correct, we can swivel all the way around a full 360, like so. And we do have a swivel in the feet as well, so we can swivel those feet all the way around a full 360, like so. But as you can see, articulation in the lower body portion of the figure is very minimal at best. And now, moving right along to the tail, one of the not so great parts of this figure, and yeah, I really mean that, not so great. We only have 1, 2, 3, 4 articulation segments in the tail. That's barely any articulation at all to begin with, because we really can't move it too much. The tip is a bendy wire, but I'm not bending mine for obvious reasons. And we can only move the tail about, yeah, that much. That's it. We can just like shift it around slightly. That's it. And it just pops off. Unless we want to rotate it a full 360, and we can't, like, other than this, like just swiveling, like whatever, like one, and I mean, other than swiveling like the individual segments that it has, tail articulation is kind of non-existent. Tail articulation would be a lot better if this would be like if they would have this as multiple segments instead of just like a bendy wire segment. That would have been better, but yeah, but since this is a bendy wire, yeah, not so great. If I had a 3D printer and I knew what I was doing, I would make like custom tails where they would be fully segmented and just get rid of get rid of the bendy wire and just give it like a fully segmented tail. Like, I wouldn't throw my bendy wire tails away, but I would just replace that with like more of a fully segmented tail and just kind of give it like a custom piece. But like I said, other than that, I think this is a okay figure. Like I said, and like you're witnessing, it's just not the best. So, with that said, it is now time to get more in depth with getting a closer look at the figure and then getting into my final verdict. So let's get to it. And now getting a closer look at the NECA Godzilla versus SpaceGodzilla Godzilla 1994 figure. Like I was going over articulation and detail. Detail with this figure is good for what it is. Articulation is good. It's okay at best until you get to this. Yeah, the tail portion of this figure, it leaves a lot to be desired. Just very underwhelming in my opinion. And it's a shame that NECA kind of cheaped out when it came to tails on their Godzilla figures when they started first producing them. But it is what it is. I mean, I'm not disappointed with this figure, but it is kind of disappointing, and the tails are not as good as what they could have been. They did improve on that with their later figures in the line, but I think what they should have done when they did reissue these was replace the bendy wire tails with fully segmented tails. But for some reason, NECA just chose not to do that. I guess for reasons like, some people that already bought the first, like, before they reissued it, like the first wave, and I guess they didn't want to make them feel bad to where they would have to buy the same thing again. But I think that would have just been a better option, just to have like fully segmented tails. But other than that, I can't recommend this figure for everybody, but it's still a much appreciated part of my collection. And if you have this one, it's most likely a much appreciated part of yours as well. But I don't recommend overpaying for aftermarket prices on this one. So that's pretty much my opinion. So with all that said, it is now time to get into my final verdict and giving you guys my final thoughts and opinions, and giving this figure a final score based on detail, articulation, and playability. So let's get to it. And now for my final verdict on the NECA Godzilla vs. SpaceGodzilla Godzilla 1994 figure here. If I have to give this one a final score based on detail, articulation, and playability, I have to give him a drum roll, please. A very fair but square. Not the best, but still okay. 3.4 stars. Why? Of course, I mean, this was a budget figure from, back when NECA still had the Godzilla license, and I know some of you are going to say, 3.4 stars, that's kind of low, and yeah, because I know I usually give more budget-friendly figures a little bit more leeway, but the reason why I've taken so much points off is because NECA really could have improved with these tails. Like, they really could have improved with these tails. There's no excuse for this. And I know, like, they still use bendy wire tails on other figures to this day. They're, alien figures, like their xenomorphs and stuff like that. But I think as far as the Godzilla line, where they had some, figures with that later in the line and had fully segmented tails, they could have reissued these with fully segmented tails. Seriously, it's just a major disappointment in that area. I'm not saying that I'm disappointed with this figure. I'm saying I'm not. It's a kind of a disappointment. It's the way they managed it. I understand it's a cost-cutting measure, but it's still like, it still leaves a lot left to be desired, like I've stated. But anyway, that pretty much concludes it for this review. If you've made it to this part in the video, thank you guys so much for watching. Your engagement is very much appreciated, because that really helps out this channel. And if you want to help out this channel even more, like and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, stay safe, take care, God bless, stay powered up, and peace out.